Welcome to Zoe Stories. I couldn't pay rent, so my landlady turned me into a girl. The landlord's warning notice stared back at me from the kitchen counter, a constant reminder of how far I'd fallen. Life as a 22-year-old recent college graduate wasn't supposed to look like this. I had worked hard to earn my degree in digital marketing, but no one had warned me about the job market. Weeks of fruitless applications had turned into months, and now, the savings I'd clung to were gone. My apartment, a dingy little space on the edge of downtown, was my last shred of independence. The peeling wallpaper and rickety furniture were a far cry from the cozy home I'd imagined for myself, but at least it was mine. Or it had been until I failed to pay rent for the third month in a row. Miss Naomi, my landlady, was patient to a point. In her mid-40s, she carried herself with an effortless elegance that felt out of place in a building where the elevator always smelled faintly of mildew. Her kindness had kept me afloat longer than I deserved, but now she wanted answers, or money. And I had neither to give. Desperation gnawed at me as I reread the note she'd slipped under my door. "See me in my office by tomorrow noon. We need to talk." The message was polite, but the underlying threat was clear. I couldn't imagine facing her with nothing to offer. Borrowing from friends or family wasn't an option. I'd cut too many ties after leaving home. My last freelance project had paid just enough to keep the lights on, but the next gig wasn't coming anytime soon. Tomorrow loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon, and I couldn't shake the sinking feeling that this meeting would decide my future. I didn't know how, but something told me my life was about to change in ways I could never have predicted. The knock on Ms. Naomi's office door echoed through the nearly empty hallway, my heart pounding in sync with the sound. Her office was tucked into the corner of the building, a warm and tastefully decorated space that seemed entirely out of place compared to the rest of the complex. When her soft, commanding voice called, "Come in," I swallowed hard and pushed the door open. Ms. Naomi sat behind her polished oak desk, a pair of reading glasses perched on the bridge of her nose. She looked up as I entered, her dark eyes sharp but not unkind.
"Ah, Alex.
Have a seat." I hesitated, unsure of what to say, then sank into the chair opposite her. My palms were slick with sweat. "I'll get straight to the point," she began, setting aside a stack of papers. "You're 3 months behind on rent, and this can't go on. I've been more than patient, but I have to think about my own livelihood." "I know, and I'm sorry," I blurted, my voice trembling. "I've been trying to find work, but—" She held up a hand, silencing me with a look that was both firm and strangely maternal.
"I believe you, Alex.
But believing doesn't pay the bills. So, here's the deal." I leaned forward, desperate for any lifeline she might offer. "You can't stay here for free," she said, her tone measured. "But I have a proposition. Something unconventional." She paused, studying my face as though weighing my reaction. "What kind of proposition?" I asked cautiously. "I need help with a project, something I've been working on for years. If you agree to assist me, I'll consider it as payment toward your debt." A flicker of hope stirred in me, but it was laced with apprehension. "What's the project?" Her lips curved into a faint smile, and she stood, walking to a nearby wardrobe. From within, she pulled out an elegant lavender dress, shimmering faintly in the light. "You'll be my model. But not just any model. You'll have to transform completely. It's part of the concept." The weight of her words settled over me, confusion mingling with unease. "Transform? How?" Ms. Naomi's gaze was unwavering. "Into a young woman, Alex. Trust me, this will solve both of our problems." My stomach dropped, my thoughts racing. I wanted to refuse, to protest, but her calm, knowing expression held me captive. Against all logic, I found myself nodding. Ms. Naomi wasted no time. The moment I agreed, she launched into an explanation of her project. She was a designer, she revealed, working on a collection that blended classic elegance with modern trends. The catch? Her vision demanded authenticity, a model who could embody the duality of identity. She had tried hiring professionals, but no one had the right energy. "You're perfect for this," she said, her voice matter-of-fact as she set the lavender dress aside. Your features are delicate, and with some guidance, you'll look stunning. Trust me. The idea of being stunning felt absurd. Still, her confidence in me was oddly reassuring. That reassurance quickly waned as she handed me a box filled with makeup, a wig, and accessories. Let's begin, she said, ushering me toward a tall mirror in the corner of the office. For the next hour, Ms. Naomi worked with an almost artistic precision. She showed me how to apply foundation to smooth out my skin, how eyeliner and mascara could make my eyes pop, and how to contour my cheekbones. My reflection slowly morphed into someone unrecognizable, a young woman with soft, glowing features. When she handed me the dress, I hesitated. Are you sure about this? Very sure, she replied, her tone leaving no room for argument. Slipping into the dress felt surreal. The fabric was smooth and cool against my skin, and the way it hugged my figure was both unsettling and fascinating. Ms. Naomi added the finishing touches, a wig of long, chestnut brown hair, a pair of dangling earrings, and heeled sandals. When I turned to face the mirror again, my breath caught. The person staring back wasn't Alex, the broke college graduate. It was someone else entirely, someone poised, elegant, and strangely confident. You see it, don't you? Ms. Naomi's voice was soft, almost proud. I look beautiful, she finished for me. The first challenge came almost immediately. Ms. Naomi insisted we take photos in the courtyard, a public space. My heart pounded as I followed her outside, hyper-aware of every step in the unfamiliar heels. The breeze tugged at my dress, and I felt exposed in a way I'd never experienced before. A few neighbors passed by, their gazes lingering just a moment too long. My face burned, but Ms. Naomi's calm demeanor kept me grounded. You're doing great, she said, snapping photos as I posed awkwardly by the fountain.
Relax.
Own it. Easier said than done, but as the minutes passed, I started to find a rhythm. Something about the way the dress moved, the way the wig framed my face, it felt right. Over the next week, Ms. Naomi's project consumed my life. Every day brought new challenges, learning to walk gracefully in heels, experimenting with different outfits, even practicing feminine mannerisms. At first, it felt like an elaborate game, but the more I immersed myself, the more natural it began to feel. The turning point came during a trip to a nearby boutique. Ms. Naomi insisted we shop for accessories to complement her collection, and she refused to let me change back into my usual clothes. You need to stay in character, she said firmly. Walking through the crowded store was nerve-wracking. Every glance felt like scrutiny, every whispered conversation a judgment. But to my surprise, no one seemed to notice anything unusual. A sales associate even complimented my earrings, sparking a brief but genuine conversation. For the first time, I felt a flicker of confidence. Maybe I could pull this off after all. As the days turned into weeks, my transformation extended beyond the physical. I found myself enjoying the process, the creativity of choosing outfits, the satisfaction of perfecting a look. Ms. Naomi noticed the shift, and she didn't hesitate to point it out. You're starting to embrace this, she said one evening as we reviewed photos from a recent shoot. I guess I am, I admitted, surprised by my own honesty. But not everything was smooth sailing. My growing comfort with the role brought its own complications. I couldn't shake the nagging question of what this meant for my identity. Was this just a temporary performance? Or was there something deeper I needed to confront? The most unexpected twist came when Ms. Naomi invited me to a local fashion showcase. She had entered her designs, and she wanted me to model them on the runway. You're kidding, I said, my voice rising in disbelief. I'm completely serious, she replied. You've worked hard for this, and you're ready. The thought of walking in front of a crowd was terrifying, but the idea of letting Ms. Naomi down felt worse. Against all my instincts, I agreed. The night of the showcase arrived faster than I expected. As I stood backstage, surrounded by professional models, the weight of the moment hit me. But as Ms. Naomi adjusted the straps of my gown and whispered, "You've got this," a calm determination settled over me. The applause that followed my walk down the runway was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. For a brief, shining moment, I wasn't Alex, the struggling tenant. I was someone extraordinary. The night after the fashion showcase was a whirlwind of emotions. The applause, the cameras, and the electric energy of the crowd lingered in my mind, but so did the nagging uncertainty that had been building over the past weeks. What had started as a desperate arrangement to pay my rent had spiraled into something far more personal, a full transformation that left me questioning who I really was. It all came to a head when Ms. Naomi invited me for a celebratory dinner at her apartment. Over glasses of wine, she recounted the success of the showcase, her enthusiasm spilling over. "You were spectacular, Alex. Or should I say, Alexa," she teased with a smile. I laughed nervously, swirling the wine in my glass. "I'm glad you're happy with how it turned out." She tilted her head, studying me intently. "But are you?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "You've been different lately. More confident, more yourself. I see it in the way you carry yourself, the way you smile when you're in those dresses. I think this is more than just a project for you." I looked away, my throat tightening. "It's complicated," I muttered. "It doesn't have to be," she said gently. "You don't have to decide everything tonight, but you do need to be honest with me and with yourself." Her words stayed with me long after I left her apartment. That night, I stood in front of the mirror in my room, still wearing the gown from the showcase. The person staring back at me was elegant, poised, and undeniably feminine. It felt right, and yet it terrified me. The next morning, I found myself at a crossroads. Ms. Naomi had arranged a meeting with a local magazine editor interested in featuring her designs, and me as her model. This could be a turning point for her career and possibly mine. But the idea of stepping into that role, of fully embracing this identity, felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. As I stood outside the editor's office, my heart raced. I could turn around, go back to my old life, and chalk this up to a strange chapter I'd never revisit. Or I could step inside and take the plunge into uncharted territory. Ms. Naomi appeared beside me, her presence grounding. "Whatever you decide, I'm proud of you," she said softly. I met her gaze and something clicked. This wasn't just about paying rent anymore, it was about finding myself. With a deep breath, I squared my shoulders, opened the door, and stepped into the room. The meeting with the magazine editor turned out to be less intimidating than I had imagined. Ms. Naomi introduced me as Alexa, her rising star model, and the editor was captivated by my presence and the story of the showcase. They offered to feature both Naomi's designs and my transformation in their next issue, a blend of fashion and personal narrative that would undoubtedly draw attention. As the days turned into weeks, life began to settle into a new rhythm. The feature in the magazine brought attention to Naomi's work, and I found myself swept up in modeling gigs and interviews. Each time I stepped into the spotlight, the once faint flicker of confidence grew stronger, as though the persona of Alexa had always been waiting for me to unlock her. Despite the outward glamour, there were challenges. Explaining my situation to old friends and family was daunting, and not everyone was immediately supportive. Yet, through it all, Naomi remained a steadfast presence, offering encouragement and advice whenever doubts crept in. One evening, after a particularly long day of fittings and photo shoots, Naomi and I sat in her studio. The air was thick with the scent of fabric and fresh flowers she always kept by her sewing machine. "You've come a long way," she said, sipping her tea. "So have you," I replied with a smile. The success of her designs had allowed her to expand her business, and she'd begun mentoring aspiring designers. She leaned back in her chair, studying me with a mix of pride and fondness. "Do you regret it?" I thought for a moment before shaking my head.
No.
"It's been hard, but it's also been freeing. I never knew how much of myself I was holding back until now." Naomi smiled knowingly. "Sometimes it takes a little push to discover who we really are." That night, as I walked home, I realized that the transformation hadn't been about the dresses or the makeup. It had been about shedding the fear that had held me back for so long. Alexa wasn't just a persona, she was a part of me. And for the first time, I was ready to embrace her fully. Months passed, and life as Alexa became my new normal. The magazine feature was a success, propelling Ms. Naomi's designs into the spotlight and cementing my place in the fashion world. With every photo shoot, runway show, and interview, I felt more at ease in my skin. The once awkward boy who had stumbled into Naomi's studio out of desperation now seemed like a distant memory. But the biggest change wasn't in my outward appearance, it was in how I viewed myself. For years, I'd lived within the constraints of what I thought I was supposed to be, afraid to step outside the lines. Becoming Alexa shattered those limits and allowed me to explore parts of myself I never knew existed. One evening, as I stood backstage at another runway show, I caught a glimpse of my reflection. The elegant woman staring back radiated confidence, poise, and authenticity. A stylist fussed with my hair, and Naomi appeared beside me, her eyes sparkling with pride. "I always knew you had this in you," she said, adjusting the drape of my gown. I smiled. "Thank you for everything. I wouldn't be here without you." Her expression softened. "You give me too much credit. All I did was provide a little nudge. The rest was all you." The show began, and as I stepped onto the runway, the lights blinding but exhilarating, I felt a profound sense of belonging. The applause wasn't just for the designs or the performance, it was for the person I had become. Later that night, as I walked home under the city lights, I thought about how far I had come. My journey hadn't been easy, and it wasn't over. There were still challenges ahead, but I no longer feared them, because I'd learned that sometimes the most unexpected circumstances can lead you to discover who you truly are. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. As I unlocked my door and stepped inside, I glanced at the pile of unopened mail on the counter. Among the bills and advertisements was a glossy magazine with my face on the cover. I picked it up, smiling softly. Alexa wasn't just a name or a persona.
She was me.
And this was only the beginning. Thank you for joining us on another captivating journey through Zoe's stories. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a tale. Until next time, keep exploring, keep imagining, and keep believing in the magic of storytelling. See you in the next chapter.